I'm not going to blame any of you kids for having zero knowledge of TV heads prior to FUCC.IT from 2000. It goes so much further back than that. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's start by setting down some definitions. What is a TV head? Real simple, just a human whose head has been replaced by a TV, or sometimes a computer monitor. The TV head is a specific character type that fits within the larger category of object head, which, as it sounds, is just a human whose head has been replaced by an object, though it can have broader parameters. Humans with animal heads is its own separate category and goes back thousands of years. Mythology and folktales are filled with stories of such characters. And living or possessed objects do not fall under the category of object heads. Neither do anthropomorphic creatures. The internet fans of this subgenre like to claim artist Salvador Dali's 1935 workwoman with head of roses as the first version of an object head, but it goes back much further. Some other 20th century examples include the bag over the head, and was a symbol of shame, to hide one's face so as not to be seen. Most popularly used by the Unknown Comic, a 1970s comedian who appeared many times on the talent game show, The Gong Show. As a side note, Danny Elfman also once appeared on The Gong Show with the first incarnation of his band Oingo Boingo. Another is from the 1959 Looney Tunes cartoon, Cat's Paw. Sylvester the cat's son puts a bag over his head and says, "I am so ashamed. I can never show my face in public again." But the most popular version of an object head that we see every year would be the pumpkin-headed scarecrow, with the two best-known such characters being Jack Skellington in his Pumpkin King form from the 1993 Disney stop animation film The Nightmare Before Christmas, which featured the musical talents of Danny Elfman, and 1929's Jack Pumpkinhead of Oz, from the Wizard of Oz books. While scarecrows date back to 1545, the jack-o'-lantern-headed ones date back to 1836 and the legend of Stingy Jack, in which Jack was cursed to roam the earth with a turnip for a head. But the most famous maker of object heads would have to be Giuseppe Arcimboldo, who lived from 1526 to 1593. He was a famous Italian painter best known for creating portrait heads made entirely of objects such as fruits, vegetables, flowers, fish, and books. Perhaps the most disturbing one being the portrait of Eve, the first woman, thus the mother of humanity, whose face is made up of people. Now, on with the show. Or the TV head video essay, as it were. The television has been used in art and other media as a critique on consumerism since they became more readily available after World War II and with the advent of television broadcast stations, a boom in programming, and the subsequent advertising that came along with it, which would eventually consume every aspect of the medium. Television was quickly criticized as turning society into an audience that is dependent on the need for constant entertainment. It spawned the descriptors boob-tube and cultural wasteland. And I'm sure you've heard the expression,
"Hey, who's watching that?"
TV rots your brains.
Many see it as the coming to fruition of the dystopian futures that we were warned against in the books 1984 and Brave New World, and is very much the modern extension of the ancient Roman writer Juvenal, who deplored the declining heroism of Romans after the Roman Republic ceased to exist and the Roman Empire began. He said, "Two things only the people anxiously desire: bread and circuses." But we shall work in reverse chronological order, and I will reveal to you the true history of the TV head. Though not necessarily a true TV head, throughout the years MTV used the reflective surface of their mascot Moonman astronaut like a TV screen. Max Headroom, 1985, a fictional character played by actor Matt Frewer, and was advertised as the first computer-generated TV presenter. According to his creators, Max's personality was meant to be a satirical exaggeration of the worst tendencies of television hosts in the 1980s who wanted to appeal to youth culture yet were not a part of it. Max and other versions of the TV head became popular Halloween costumes. In the 1984 film Beverly Hills Cop starring Eddie Murphy, you can see a TV head in the background of the art gallery scene. And as someone who was actually around then, the 80s was kind of the pinnacle of replacing people's heads with objects. Not just as art pieces, but also in the use of mannequins and mall artwork and in clubs as well. And I know TV heads have appeared in multiple music videos, though the exact ones have been lost to an aging mind filled with hazy memories and blurry images from a bygone 1980s MTV generation. And I'll bet there was one or two back in the early days of artsy creepy kids shows. Electronic Games was the first dedicated video game magazine in the United States and ran from October 15, 1981 to 1997. They were notable for hosting the Arcade Awards, or Archie Awards, the first Game of the Year awards ceremony which simultaneously ran in video magazine's Arcade Alley column. The Arcade Awards mascot was a TV head version of the Academy Awards Oscar statue. And I know a couple of those old video game and computer magazines also featured TV head artwork and maybe an ad or two. Though I can't find any other pics online, and I got rid of those old magazines decades ago. Damn, that was stupid of me.
Beware, I live.
But those images were eerily precognitive of what the 1990s virtual reality headgear would come to look like, especially with the advent of the modern VR headset The Verge 30 years later, which shows the wearer's eyes on an outward-facing second screen. Famed American artist Keith Haring did numerous versions of TV head during his career, especially during its peak in the 80s. But the VR headset was predated by the 3D TV headset created by Hugo Gernsback and highlighted in the July 1963 edition of Life magazine. San Francisco International Video Festival, the TV head imagery was used as a recurring motif throughout the festivals. The main poster for the 1974 film, The Groove Tube, featured a gorilla with a TV head. It is an American independent comedy starring Ken Shapiro, Richard Belzer, and Chevy Chase. The low-budget movie satirizes television and counterculture of the early 1970s. The film was derived from sketches shot on videotape and shown at the Channel 1 Theater in New York City, a venue that featured R-rated video recordings shown on 3 television sets, which was a novelty to the audiences of the time. Compilations of sketches from these presentations were taken on tour to college venues, and based on audience responses, the best-received sketches were restaged on film with most of the original actors reprising their roles. Though the film is mostly forgotten by even the boomers who saw it in theaters and Gen X who got to see it in constant reruns on cable television in the early 80s, the poster does tie into the world's first TV head. And we will get to that shortly. Now let us continue on down the timeline. Released in 1970, the JVC Videosphere portable television is one of the most iconic electronic devices of its era. It is a round TV, shaped like a space helmet, inspired by the ones worn by the Apollo 11 astronauts. Though I would hope that no one turns one of these into a TV head cosplay due to the rarity and the probable high cost that such an item would demand. But much like the Groove Tube poster, though not connected to that film, its aesthetic also harkens back to the first TV head. In 1965, the term talking head came into the vernacular. It is a person who is shown only from the shoulder up and speaks without the use of any illustrative material. This filming technique was popularized on newscasts and talk shows. Nam June Paik, performance artist, in 1964 began incorporating televisions and videotape recorders into his work. He became one of the pioneering influences in what would eventually be called video art. The instant popularity of television when it became a household staple also spawned tons of ads and parodies along the TV head motif in the 50s and 60s. Which brings us to the first official TV head in world history. And he even has a name. Roman, the titular character from the 1953 American independent black and white 3D science fiction film, Robot Monster. Though the base helmet design was borrowed from Radar Men from the Moon, It is apparent that the addition of the rabbit ears TV antennae and single round speaker that makes up Roman's TV head design is based on television sets with round screens, the earliest being the Zenith porthole TV manufactured in 1950. So there you have it. The true origin of the TV head. Be sure to subscribe for more horror, occult, and Lovecraft madness. Until next time, Cthulhu Fatagan.